Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, staying safe, especially my folks down to the deep south, the Gulf states. Very active weather this morning is an understatement. We expected this, and this is certainly unfolding this morning. It got very active about 2, 3, 4 hours ago, and it's been active ever since. We've already had reports of tornadoes in the panhandle of Florida. We actually have a live cam feed for maybe a hotel or something that actually showed a waterspout moving on shore into land like the beach and just doing a lot of damage. We've seen pictures, videos, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more as the sun comes up. But all this weather, severe weather, is going to shift east and northeast throughout Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, North Florida. We're going to give you all the latest information on that. We'll talk about the winter weather side of this system, heavy rain, all the strong winds associated with everything in between. We're going to break it all down for you folks. I don't go live. There's a lot of people going live right now, whether they're a storm chaser, whether just doing something like what Ryan Hall and Andy does with going live. They do a heck of a job. I just typically on this channel stay ahead of the storm. That's what we do. I don't have a good enough internet feed to really go live with you folks. But for you guys that do not know, I do storm chase, especially locally. I don't do like cross-country storm chasing while driving from South Carolina and Nebraska to chase a snowstorm. No, I can't do that. But I will be chasing today locally here in South Carolina, might ooze in Georgia, or maybe southeast North Carolina. But I will be chasing today. Stay tuned for that. I'll have updates. I like to, take a day off work, and certainly when there's an active day in my home state, I like to report things. But we're going to break it all down. After we discuss this first system, we're going to give you the latest information on this second system. This is going to bring another severe weather threat, another potential major winter storm. In fact, it will be. We could have another blizzard for another area of the country. And then behind that, folks, confidence just continues to skyrocket that we're going to have a winter storm for areas further south. I mean, I'm even talking about maybe North Texas, Arkansas, the Mid-South region. It's a pretty solid signal. We're waking up to some pretty wild runs this morning from that. So we're going to go over all the latest information on that. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can do that. Thank you all for the super thanks, the donations. They mean the world. I just want to always show my appreciation for that. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. This is as advertised. It's a massive storm system covering up pretty much all of the eastern U.S. and still portions of the central U.S. It's snowing heavily. Winds are beginning to pick up on the backside of another developing low in Missouri. So you're getting on and off blizzard conditions most likely in portions of the Midwest. You got this heavy area of snow and then this area of heavy snow. It looks like it's kind of breaking off. We sort of expected that. Let me know what you're seeing in Milwaukee, Chicago this morning, maybe northern Indiana. It's kind of doing, based off the radar, what we kind of thought it was going to do. Start off as heavy snow, then switch to rain. Let me know what you're seeing in interior sections like the Central Appalachian Mountain Range region and the interior sections of the Northeast. And of course, we got a lot of heavy rain in between, and it's very windy with all this too. Winds are going to really pick up in South Carolina and North Carolina. You're going to notice the atmosphere completely changes throughout the morning in this area as a warm front rises in and over and creates a very moist environment and an unstable environment. And then, of course, we have our next system already moving into the Pacific Northwest. Storm Prediction Center today, enhanced risk. And folks, quick note here, they always do another update around 8:45. So this is around 7 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, around 8:45, maybe 8:39 Eastern time. Here in another hour, as of when I'm making this video, they might do another update. Might update this to upgrade this to a moderate risk. We'll see what happens. But an enhanced risk, I'm going to keep it this level 3 out of 5. We're going to talk about the threat levels of this when we get to the southeast panel. So bear with me with that. But significant severe weather threat today still remains for the southeast. Excessive rainfall outlook. Flooding is something that's not getting talked about as much because there's so much other stuff going on. But you have a moderate risk of flash flooding in the upstate of South Carolina and the southwest Piedmont and North Carolina, where you could get 4 to 5 inches of rain. And then between snow melt and heavy rain, you have a moderate risk of flash flooding in the mid-Atlantic and areas of the Northeast and southern New England. That means there's at least a 40% risk of flash flood guidance being met. This is a big deal. Check out all the watches and warnings, folks. This all over here is from the system moving in. So this has nothing to do with this system. This is the system we're dealing with right now. Unreal stuff. Wind advisories for everybody in this kind of tan color. Of course, you have the ongoing tornado watches. Of course, this is ongoing right now. So this video will drop about an hour after I'm done with it. And it'll be, some new things will be ongoing. That's why it's always difficult to really talk on storms that's ongoing right now. But I don't expect much with the watches and warnings to change. Could have another tornado watch that get issued in South Georgia, South Carolina by the time some of you folks are tuning in. Flood watches in the green, winter weather advisories in the Central Apps region, even two counties in western Maryland with a winter storm warning. Winter storm warning's up for almost the entire state of Maine. Winter weather advisories in the mountainous regions of the interior Northeast. You got high wind warnings in this mustard colors, riding the spine of the Appalachian Mountains and the coastal regions of the eastern U.S. Winter storm warnings right here in the pink. Winter weather advisories, all the way down to northwest Arkansas. Blizzard warnings remain for areas of Kansas, the 3 counties in the panhandle of Oklahoma, and several counties in the panhandle of Texas. A lot going on. Lot going on, folks. So let's zoom into the severe weather threat for the southeast. Enhanced risk remains. And like I said, this could uptrend. It could remain the same, maybe downtrend. I don't see it downtrending. I'm not trying to, sound the hype alarm, but I don't see anything pointing to this downtrending. So if anything, it's going to uptrend or stay the same. Enhanced risk, which means in the orange, there's a level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Yellow, level 2 out of 5. So let's just go on and talk about the threat levels. All right. In the yellow, this is for what's going on really right now over the next few hours. And this yellow is for what happens later this morning into this afternoon, this evening. So in these 2 yellow areas, there's a 10% risk of a significant tornado to basically sum it all up, which means you got a 10% risk of a tornado, and you also have a 10% risk of a significant tornado. They're two, basically their own threat levels. So you don't add 10 plus 10 equals 20. They're their own thing. So a significant tornado is considered an EF2 or higher in this case, in all cases. Wind threat with this, in the red, you have a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, which is 55 to 60 miles per hour. And you also have a hatch risk, folks, which extends a little bit into the slight risk and pretty much covers all of the red area, which is the 30% risk. A 10% risk of significant winds stands for you have a 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 knots or higher, which is around 70 to 75 miles per hour or higher. So the wind threat's going to be big. There will be a small risk of hail today, but yeah, that's not even really worth showing. It's not going to be that big of a deal at all. Let's take a broad look at what's going on. First off, let me know if you're dealing with a little bit of ice in the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee. You're going to get some heavy snow in the higher elevations of West Virginia, North Carolina, Western Maryland, up into Pennsylvania. This morning, I think eventually it does change to rain. And here comes this line of storms. What's concerning me this morning is that we're starting to really see a clear trend for a clearing ahead of this line. So you see all these storms right in here. We're going to zoom into this here in a second. That's concerning to me, but we'll kind of swoop it through before we zoom in certain areas. Here goes those storms making its way through Georgia, northern Florida. If you're confused about the time frame, 2 p.m. And then we're getting into 4 p.m. Line of storms basically swoops through the entire state of Florida. I think they'll weaken by the time they get down here to like South Florida, but even you folks later tonight could get a line of storms. And look at this snow trying to filter in behind this. I definitely think later this evening we'll have some snow, like late evening, closer to midnight. We'll have some snow flying around as far south as maybe northern Alabama. We'll have a separate segment for that. And look at all the snow flying around after midnight tonight in Kentucky and then into West Virginia. This could actually add some accumulations too. But let's zoom into the severe weather threat. This is the area I will be chasing today personally. This is the threat area. You got ice that's going to hang on to these favorite areas in the apps, but eventually all this will turn into a heavy cold rain. So we'll get it all the way to about midday. All these storms are the concerning threat right into here. Anything that forms out ahead of this main line is going to have your highest risk for a significant tornado. And you keep this going, and sure enough, and it gets kind of sloppy, but you got to watch all these storms, like these little semi-discrete storms. They will be rotating. The line behind it will probably produce the strongest winds. And, everybody's wondering about timing. This is 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. This is moving through Columbia, Charlotte. And then we got to watch all these storms right in here in eastern North Carolina. And then you got to watch the line, too. I mean, that's going to have a tornado threat also. 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and it's starting to get very rocky over here in eastern North Carolina, even southeast VA. And look at these snow showers trying to wrap in all the way to Atlanta later this evening. And, I mean, you even got some showers trying to make its way back into South Carolina, but it's not enough cold air. Seems like there never is, but not going to get my negative emotions in that. But, you know, you got snow falling in North Georgia, the Cumberland Plateau, the mountains of North Carolina, and Tennessee. So we'll take a better look at that here in a second. But the significant tornado parameter today, as you can tell, rides up through southern Georgia. This is around 11 a.m., and then it really starts to spike early this afternoon from basically the Midlands of South Carolina eastward, eastward, and then even northeastward. And here it is. It begins to spike. And basically, the higher the number, the better ingredients for a tornado. That's what this is, the significant tornado parameter. And it really spikes right here in the eastern PD, right along the Grand Strand up to Florence. Just this entire region right here really spikes around this afternoon. And then it starts to get high in southeast North Carolina later this evening, and then eastern North Carolina, and then it fades away. But you know, you look at the updraft velocity swath, and it has increased. You know, it wasn't showing much of a signal for this, but certainly the look is there in Georgia. The look is there in South Carolina. Certainly the updraft velocity swath doesn't always tell the story, folks. You know, you're thinking, well, it doesn't look like it's as bad in South Carolina. I've seen it where it has went crazy on the updraft velocity swath, showing where there's rotating thunderstorms, and I've seen it where it's went crazy and it didn't hardly do anything. I've seen where it hardly showed nothing, and it has. So it doesn't tell this whole story always. But the winds, this is the Gauge Triple R model, folks. The winds are going to pick up substantially throughout the morning from the southwest to the northeast. Look at these winds gusting to 50 to 60 miles per hour in central Georgia, southern Georgia. And then we're getting into South Carolina. Winds are really howling. I mean, folks, please tie things down this morning, or it's going to get blown all over when you pull back in from work this evening. But this is just going to be a corridor of very strong winds, anywhere from 40 to 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts throughout Georgia, the Carolinas, and you know, not to leave my folks out in Florida hanging here. Where's Florida? Here we go. But the winds will be very strong in the Big Bend region of Florida and North Florida. Winds will be, you know, pressing 50 to 60 miles per hour in these regions also, especially with these storms this morning, early this afternoon. Rainfall, I mean, I think someone could squeeze out about 5 inches of rain, especially around and just south of Asheville, Hendersonville, Brevard. These regions right in here could really get hit very hard. Upstate of South Carolina, 3 to 4 inches of rain. Atlanta, it's already raining. Some of these areas are already seeing rain this morning. And just a really heavy stripe of rain in the foothills and Piedmont of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Heavy rain expected. So I do want to talk about this back in moisture. Once everything pulls through, this is getting into closer to midnight. This is 10, 11 p.m. There's potentially going to be a round of snow that makes its way to Tennessee, maybe North Alabama. Snow, it keeps on increasing, honestly. I mean, up in Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, you got a rain-snow mix, and then eventually, once it cools down at night, it switches to all snow. For example, this is 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning tonight. I mean, it's snowing from Bowling Green to Lexington, Cincinnati. It's snowing in Louisville. It's snowing all the way down almost to Nashville, the Cumberland Plateau, even the Tennessee Valley seeing snow. This wraps into southwest Ohio, Dayton, Columbus, see some snow. It's around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you're just, I think this could surprise some people. The National Weather Service has increased it a little bit, but still not showing much. But Cumberland Plateau giving about a half an inch of snow. I think that someone in here in Kentucky, Tennessee could get an inch or two of snow. I really do. I mean, the models are really liking this swoop through. Is the HRRR model going to nail this or not? But I think someone could sneak an inch or two of snow somewhere in this region right into here. But the National Weather Service not buying much. Let's go up to the northeast. Storm moves in. All rain will pretty much be the dominating factor here in Ohio, West Virginia. Eventually, even Maryland, Western Maryland, those favorite areas and those higher elevations will eventually switch to all rain this afternoon. You'll deal with that big front-end thumping of snow, sort of northern PA, maybe the Poconos, maybe the Catskills. I mean, it could be a heavy front-end thumping of snow. But you're eventually going to switch to rain because the low is basically bringing a lot of warm air aloft and to the surface. And I mean, even the HRRR model saying a quick thumping of snow initially from this evening in Massachusetts, not Boston more than likely, but I mean, these areas in the Berkshires for sure, and then the hilly terrain in central Mass, certainly, and maybe northwest Connecticut. And I think it's going to be snowing like crazy at the beginning of the storm later this evening in interior areas of the Northeast. And then this moves into Maine, where you're going to get, I think you're going to get 1 to 2 inch per hour snowfall rates up into these areas. And then it really cranks up overnight. Then you're getting into tomorrow morning. And then, the system moves in, the cold air wraps in back around it, and we could get a little bit of lake effect snow off Lake Erie tomorrow afternoon. And then we watch another system. This isn't our second big system. This is kind of a system in between our two big systems that will kind of scoot through the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. And snowfall between this, I mean, anywhere from, you could get a foot and a half of snow in the higher elevations of Vermont. New Hampshire. But even Vermont, the valleys, between the Adirondacks and the mountains of Vermont, probably not going to get as much from this, just because it's a very warm system. When you compare it to the average temperatures this time of the year, the Adirondacks, higher elevations, anywhere from 6 to 12 inches of snow. A quick several inches of snow is possible in PA, but you're going to switch to rain. Someone could get a 6 to 8 inches of snow in western Maryland. Maine, a pretty substantial winter storm. Nothing too crazy, but it's going to be heavy, wet snow. This is not going to be that dry, powdery snow up here in Maine. Heavy, wet snow will move in like flakes the size of cotton balls. Precipitation in general, you notice this is all the way through Wednesday evening, a swath of anywhere from 1.5 to 4 inches of rain along the I-95 corridor. And I don't know how much snow is still on the ground up here in southern New England, but you're going to get rapid snow melt with this, along with the rain actually falling on it, not snow. These winds are really going to pick up, especially later tonight off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, Buffalo, south through the Finger Lakes region, anywhere from 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, folks. And of course, they're going to be higher up in the higher terrain of the Adirondacks, the Green and White Mountains, the Berkshires, are even showing a favorite area right in here. And along the coastal regions, it's going to feel like a strong nor'easter, folks. The Jersey Shore, you're going to get 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts to Delmarva, Delaware, out in Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard. It's going to feel like a nor'easter. Very strong winds up against the coastal regions of Maine. Somebody could get a 70, 75 mile per hour wind gust in these regions. The winds are going to really pick up also, with this heavy, wet snow moving into Maine. So the south central U.S., I would say, is probably one of the most quieter sections of the country. But, it's not that quiet. If you kind of go up the road here, you're going to be dealing with some snow still flying around in Kansas City this morning. This last little bit of snow, folks, this is what created those blizzard conditions in Kansas. This last little bit of snow is going to have a lot of windy conditions with it. So in Missouri this afternoon, I think there's a chance that he's going to have on and off blizzard conditions in this area. As this last kind of comet head of snow moves in, this could potentially dump a couple inches of snow on St. Louis as it pulls through very breezy conditions. And then it pulls on out, and then we're waking up tomorrow morning with pretty calm conditions. And here's a closer look at my folks in Missouri and Illinois. I think Chicago, if you're not already switched to rain, I don't know what you've seen overnight, but you're going to definitely get rain later today. I think heavy snow will continue to fall in southeast Iowa and northern and northwest Illinois. And then you just this last little bit that pulls through, it's going to produce some strong winds with it and some moderate to heavy snow. And then this pulls through, and then it kind of connects with this energy we've been talking about down in Tennessee and Kentucky. So, you look at snowfall right now, but this is between now and the next 24 hours. You see how it increases? So they're calling for an additional several more inches of snow up here. I'm not calling for much in St. Louis, but, you could get another 1 to 4 inches of snow in central Missouri as this backside is pulling throughout the morning and early afternoon hours. And we take a look at the north central U.S., the winter storm begins to crank up for the UP of Michigan, especially northern lower Michigan. The winter storm continues for the southern half of Wisconsin, eastern Iowa. Snow starts to really pick up in intensity later this afternoon in Green Bay. I think you are staying snow in Milwaukee, Janesville, Madison. And I really think this really cranks up later this evening, like I said, in northern lower Michigan and then the eastern UP of Michigan. And then this pulls through, and same thing, as we're getting into tomorrow morning, this last little bit of snow is going to be pumping out some pretty breezy conditions. And then over here in Ohio, I think as you're getting after midnight, a band of light to moderate snow could make its way and swoop through the state. But the winds with this, you can see, they're not terrible out there right now. They're breezy, but as you can tell, as this backside area kind of pulls through, the winds really increase, and you start to get 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts potentially over the Great Lakes and Midwest region. So out west, we have a lot going on. Heavy, higher elevation snow in the Rockies, lower elevation rain, but even the snow levels are pretty low right now. But it's going to be snowing throughout the afternoon, in areas of Idaho, areas of Montana, heavy snow in the Cascades. Snow won't get all the way down to most likely Salt Lake City later this afternoon, this evening. Snow will, move through northern sections of Wyoming, southern sections of Wyoming, make it all the way to the Rockies of Colorado. And, all this moisture will kind of shunt southward. So the Cascades here in Oregon, Northern California will start to get hit really hard. And even snow overspread throughout the rest of the state of Oregon into Idaho as we're getting into tomorrow morning. And this continues, folks. And then it cranks up for the Sierra Nevada for a period tomorrow. And then you might get a little bit more of a calmer period late tomorrow into Thursday. We'll see. The snowfall just between now and the next 24 hours, feet of snow in the Cascades, Olympic Mountains, well over a foot of snow in most areas. Idaho, the Rockies in Idaho getting hit hard. Montana, 8 to 14, 15-inch snowfall. You're starting to pick up snow in the Rockies here in Colorado. Yellowstone National Park getting several inches of snow, and it starts to add up in the northern terrain of the Sierra Nevada. Even northeast Nevada starts to pick up some heavy snow with this also. Winds will be very strong throughout the day. Got a lot of wind alerts out here. This is potential wind gusts through this morning through tomorrow morning. And they are going to be whipping in Wyoming, especially if you're higher up in elevation. And look at the Rockies. You're going to have that's why you have blizzard warnings in a lot of areas out here. Winds are very strong. The only state that really is, not getting thrashed with strong winds is like Arizona. So, but out here, as far as temperatures, the warm sector will be moving up into the southeast. Temperatures will rise. The eastern U.S. Will actually be, in general, a good bit above average. This is a pretty warm system. So, you're probably going to try to hit 50 degrees in southern Ohio today. So, cold air trying to spill in behind this system into the central portion of the country, but nothing too crazy. The crazy cold moves in behind this and just kind of average, slightly below average and slightly above average in certain areas out in the western U.S. The system moving in behind this will start off Thursday afternoon. Literally 24 to 48 hours after we're done with the first system, another one moves in. And here comes the heavy snow showing up again. And, areas of eastern Nebraska, Iowa, we're going to be mentioning some of the same states again. I'm going to start to memorize different places out here very soon if this keeps up. But Arctic air is beginning to spill in behind this system, deeper and deeper. So, you got this stripe of light snow all the way down here in southern Kansas and areas of western Oklahoma. And here we go, 983 millibar low cranking up, probably a severe weather threat to the south, and we'll discuss that here in a second. But this is bringing a lot of warm air aloft, warm air to the surface, and a warm nose bubbles up in St. Louis, and therefore you stay rain. But this cranks up. This is going to be another significant system. Dare I say, as more significant as this one? It is possible. But heavy rain switches to heavy snow in Missouri. Stays snow in Chicago, another substantial event, and then this low deepens. But you gotta factor this in. Arctic air is crashing in at this point. So, you get it all the way to Friday evening, which I need to get better. We'll mention the times around 9 p.m. Friday night. You do not switch to rain in Chicago. This hits you with a blizzard in Chicago. Yeah, 972 millibar low right in here. This will be a blizzard for areas in the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. We need to wait before we call it that, but if something like the Euro was to happen, this would definitely be a blizzard. Backside, very heavy snow all the way down the Illinois, Missouri border, all the way down to St. Louis, heck, almost all the way down to the Boot Hill, Missouri. And to keep this going Friday night, turns into an all-out raging winter storm across the Great Lakes region, portions of the upper Midwest, and then this pulls on out. And then we wait for another system right behind it, which we'll talk about here in a second. What about the GFS? How does it unfold? A period of snow right in here. Northern Missouri, you start to see snow late Thursday night and a Friday morning. Same thing with areas of Kansas. This would bring snow into Kansas City. All rain initially for St. Louis. There's that backside snow Friday morning all the way down to North Texas and western Oklahoma. You keep this going, there's our main low beginning to develop and get up into the Mississippi River. Heavy snow, Chicago point south, even some heavy snow up into Milwaukee. Doesn't show as big of an event as it shows on the Euro for the GFS. But then we will start watching this 991 low. And this begins to bring winter weather all the way to northern Arkansas, southeast Missouri, cranks up, and then this is when it starts to become a substantial winter storm for areas, even all the way to, you're getting snow all the way into northwest Tennessee on this run. The heavy snow into southern Illinois, southeast Missouri, and central and northern Indiana. And then we get into Friday night, turns into another major winter storm for Detroit, northwest Ohio, and then it heads on out. All right. What about snowfall signal? Well, the National Weather Service is in view. So this is already how much snow they're calling for the system about to move in after this one, later this work week. And they already got several inches of snow forecasted for this region right in here. So they already got like a good 6 to 8 inches of snow forecasted for this area in extreme southeast Nebraska, getting into northwest Missouri. So they're already sounding the alarms with this, folks, that this is going to be another one. And it only goes out to Friday morning, and it's still snowing in these areas. When we look at the European with this, here is the signal right here. It kind of matches up the National Weather Service a little bit further north, but the signal gets very loud into the Great Lakes region. Okay, there it is. Signal gets very loud into this region. And come on, just stay on the 06Z. Come on. All right. That's not what I wanted to look at. We'll get it right here. We'll get it right here. And here it is. The signal gets very loud for the Great Lakes region, right in here, in the upper and kind of areas of the upper Midwest and the northern sections of the Ohio Valley. That is your snowfall signal from the Euro, pumping out a 1 to 2 foot snowfall. That's not a forecast, but it's pumping out a huge winter storm from Chicago through the Great Lakes region all the way into southern Ontario. And then this moves out. What about the Euro for the eastern U.S.? Here it comes. All rain. All rain for this section right in here. This is just another wind-driven rain. Could just be a very similar system. And yes, for my folks in the eastern, southeastern U.S., this is another rain system, another severe weather maker. But there's that big-time winter storm in the Great Lakes region. And then interior, northeast winter weather again Friday night and Saturday morning. But even you folks switch to rain again. And then something that's kind of there but not being talked about a whole lot, and I've kind of mentioned a little bit, is the cold Arctic air funnels in over the Great Lakes and kickstarts the potential for a pretty aggressive lake effect snow event as we get to the middle portion of this coming weekend into lasting throughout the entire rest of the weekend. As you can tell, you see all those streamers up here. That could be a vigorous lake effect snow setup, as I don't know if really any of the Great Lakes are really froze over right now. So, when they're not froze over, lake effect snow season continues. You got to get the Great Lakes to freeze over before basically the lake effect snow stops. But the GFS with this system, further south, heavy hitter for the upper sections of the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region. It keeps this snow just about the entire event as we're getting into Friday afternoon in Cleveland, Detroit. On the Euro, it takes this low and basically slings it up into Michigan or southern Ontario. Heavy backside snow with this starts off as heavy winter weather into northern PA late Friday night into southwest New York. And then we're starting to get into, Saturday morning. And we got a lot of heavy interior northeast winter weather, snow, maybe ice, sleet. And then this is a whopper of a winter storm for southern Ontario, Quebec. And this continues, could be another major winter storm for Maine. And then we got to watch the back end energy behind this. Vigorous northwest snow event, and then the Great Lakes snow machine starts to kick up. What about the signal out here? This is the European. And here it goes. We've already kind of looked at this. Signal is the highest right in here. And then, the interior northeast, like hugging up against the Canadian border, see snow from this too. What about the GFS? Same kind of model here. And, as you could tell, it shifted south. Therefore, it's a big hit for Detroit, almost to Cleveland, northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, southern Michigan. And, a little bit further southeast into the interior northeast gets hit with this too. And then this moves out. So there's a big-time severe weather threat with this too, folks. I think this will uptrend, but as of now for day 3, which is this coming Thursday, 2 days from now, a slight risk is already up for the northern half of Louisiana, western Mississippi, southern Arkansas, and eastern Texas. Right now, there's a level 2 out of risk for severe weather, which means there's a 15% risk of severe weather in this area. And then we have a large 15% risk of severe weather for day 4, which is our Friday, which expands from basically almost Alexandria, Louisiana, all the way up to Raleigh, getting close to Richmond, Virginia. This entire area in yellow has a 15% risk of some sort of severe weather within 25 miles of any given location. Really, this is driven off this. It's like deja vu, folks. Another intense low to mid-level jet moves over the eastern U.S. And here it comes. You know, it starts off a Thursday across this region. You got a low-level jet pushing 40 to 50 knots, which is plenty enough to get severe weather. You start to get into Friday, midday. You get a low-level jet once again pushing over 65 to 85 knots over the mid-south and southeast. And then there it is. This is definitely going to pump out more severe weather, more high winds over this region of the southeast again. And there's that low up here creating that massive low-level jet. A lot of severe weather once again in these areas. You combine that with these dew points to rise. You got a more expansive northern moist sector with this. And we're getting into Friday, for example. Look at these dew points rising into the 60s all the way up into northern Mississippi. And then they rise into the 60s throughout the same areas that it'll do today. And check that off as an ingredient for severe weather. Thermodynamics and kinematics are there. Another big-time severe weather threat I think could materialize Thursday into Friday across the south. Then, folks, if you waited this long to get to the video, this is the part that's probably going to excite you. Next system that moves in, we start this off, Sunday morning. We get it into Sunday afternoon. Look at this winter weather, basically just kind of coming out of nowhere in Oklahoma, areas of Kansas, into northern Texas. Look at this ice in northern Texas. And then look at the snow in Oklahoma. This would turn into a snowstorm for Oklahoma City to Tulsa. And look at the dreaded ice in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I mean, getting close to all the way down to Austin. Eventually it does. And look at this Arctic boundary sagging down. You got an overrunning event. It seems like the same area of the country has seen a winter storm like this. Not 100% saying it's going to happen. I think the signal was there. But it seems like you guys have seen a similar winter storm like this over the last few winters. Over here in South Carolina, I'm kind of jealous just because I want a winter storm, but it's just the way it is. But you're getting into Monday morning, all-out winter storm in the heart of Texas. In northern Texas, like Dallas-Fort Worth, this would be an icing event. Look at this ice getting all the way down into south-central Texas. This ice turns to snow in Dallas. We're not going to talk so much specifically on this, just in general. Look at this run of the Euro. Goes from ice to snow in Little Rock, and gets a winter storm all the way into eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, northern sections of Mississippi, into western Tennessee. And we're going to move eastward here in a second, too. And that is a substantial winter storm with Arctic air riding basically right behind it. So, you know, you look at the GFS. Well, does the GFS agree? It absolutely does. Here it is. It's a little different, but, I mean, not much. Monday morning, it has winter weather getting close to Houston. All right, we got sleet in the orange, freezing rain in the pink, snow in the blue. And look at this major winter storm showing up for areas pretty far south. We got winter weather over northern Louisiana, Arkansas. We got an all-out winter storm going on. It kind of misses more so of Oklahoma, but you still get heavy snow in Oklahoma, you know, eastern and southeastern sections of the state. And it gets wintry weather all the way to the coastline of Texas and Louisiana as we're getting into Monday afternoon with an Arctic air boundary sagging south and just a classic overrunning event in here. With the overrunning events, you're definitely going to get a mixed precipitation. It's just trying to figure out who sees rain, who sees snow, who sees ice. Your local people in here will start to talk about this more, absolutely, probably today into the next day. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the signal is glaring. It's there. It's loud. And you keep this going, and, I mean, you're showing winter weather into the Gulf of Mexico. So, yeah, I mean, that's a classic Arctic boundary type setup. What about the southeast? Can you throw us a bone here in Georgia and the Carolinas? Well, we'll see. We get into Monday morning. Look at it. It's moving in. We already kind of talked about this, and the system basically begins to cut. I can already tell you this is not going to work out for Georgia and the Carolinas. The low pressure is already beginning to move inland into southern Mississippi, but this is an all-out winter storm developing in Memphis, northern Mississippi, Little Rock, western Tennessee, and then it evolves across the entire state of Tennessee. Northern Alabama starts to see it, but with a low cutting right through Georgia, everybody east of the Appalachian Mountains are not going to score with this unless you move on up the eastern seaboard. But this is a major winter storm Monday night into Tuesday morning across the Mid-South into Kentucky, My friend up here that is always bummed out it never snows in West Virginia, this would be your storm. This is a perfect track with Arctic air coming in. You would have no mixing issues up here. But, you get into Tuesday morning an all-out winter storm in West Virginia, that basically half of Virginia, icing in the North Carolina mountains. But then again, for my folks east of the Alps, it's just a matter of fact that the Arctic air is not in place before a low develops. And a lot of people say, Mitch, why does it seem like it stops right in the mountains? Well, it's not. One thing I do believe, Arctic air struggles to get past the mountains. Arctic air is shallow, and when the Arctic front hits the mountains, it kind of has to ooze through the valleys of the mountains because Arctic air is shallow. When an Arctic front basically blasts through the mountains, there's always a lag, especially if it dives kind of like in from directly from the northwest. If it comes and dives down in and moves kind of west to east, then it will kind of undercut the mountains, and then it won't be delayed too much. But what I'm trying to say is, if you want a winter storm in the Carolinas and like Georgia, you got to get the Arctic air in first. It's kind of like, I don't know if y'all remember, I know you folks in Atlanta remember this storm. Late January 2014, 1 to 2 inches of snow crippled Atlanta. It crippled Atlanta because it snowed in like the low 20s, upper teens. Therefore, the snow actually stuck on the roads before it stuck on the grass. You got to have the Arctic air settled in, and then a low to develop along that boundary, throwing precipitation on the cold side of the boundary. That's not what happens here. The cold air is still back here. It's moving in. Therefore, just a rainstorm for us. But it does show, as we move in time, back in moisture that funnels in. And the question is, and let's just take an eastern look at this. The question is, I can't stand how it does that, folks. It irritates me so much. It always, when I kind of look at a different frame, it'll go back to the 060, and I'm still looking at the 00 era. But by the way, this does show, this shows a winter storm for the Northeast. But even mixing issues in Washington, D.C. because the Arctic air has not got in fast enough. But the thing is once this Arctic air settles in, how long does it stay in place? And I'll be honest, the eastern U.S., that the Euro says it doesn't stay in long at all. So you got to have this Arctic air settle in, slow down, and you got to have another low pop up down here and travel right into here to deliver areas of like eastern sections and the rest of North Carolina, the rest of our folks, a winter storm if you want winter weather. But this turns into a big-time winter storm for the Northeast again. What about the GFS? What does GFS show? Folks, kind of a similar setup. It looks a little bit different, though. Cold air is coming in. It's diving in. You're still being affected by warmer air in the southeast. Look at this all-out winter storm for the deep south. It is intense. You got freezing. You got winter weather all the way down to the Gulf coastline as we're getting into Monday evening. And then you're getting into, we'll stop it here. We're getting into like early Tuesday morning of next week. We got a nice round of snow riding up against the Appalachian Mountains. You got winter weather in northern Alabama, North Georgia, and then into the mid-Atlantic. This looks like your classic boundary setting up. And I don't have my thing where I can draw on this, but this is your classic Arctic boundary oozing southward. But with a low that's developing just too early, you're just still getting rain east of the Alps. We'll talk more on this when we can figure it out. The Arctic boundary sags so far south that it looks like it's snowing in the Gulf of Mexico. So once this cold air, and the GFS is a lot colder than the Euro, once this cold air settles in, there it is. There's that low popping off. And you see how this blue line is buckling to the west right in here? That is that Arctic boundary, that Arctic air sort of struggling to really get through. And, there goes the last bit of that initial wave. And then there's another low that tries to develop right into here. Throws back some snow in the Carolinas, but it doesn't develop fast enough. Throws us a bone down here in South Carolina, North Carolina. But then the Arctic air comes in, and where is our moisture after this? This is 200 hours out, a lot to figure out. We need something to pop off down here. The 540 lines all the way down into the deep south. Where is our moisture at this point? There's an aggressive-looking clipper. There's obviously northern stream energy here. Can you get some energy down here? Then you link up with that. But you keep this going. Arctic air just settles in, cold week. And then here comes something right at the tail end of the air mass. Another winter weather threat for the deep south. Is it going to come up? Here it comes, and then it gets squashed because of this Arctic high. And then it tries to do it right here, but doesn't quite get there. and then it tries to pop, and then finally it pops up moisture. Now, this is like 360 hours out, guys, but the Arctic air is gone. So I can hear the heavy breathing now in the southeast. You're thinking, winter's canceled, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'll be honest, it's one of the most, I'm just going to keep it real with you folks. It's one of the most annoying things I hear or read when I read the comments. And it's nothing against y'all, but if you're going to put any kind of emotion into the weather, just put positive emotion into it or stay neutral. Because and I used to be like this. I'm speaking as myself because I was like this. If you say, man, why does it always seem like they get it and we don't? There's a bubble over my house. I used to say the same stuff, but finally I just quit taking it personal and I just realized the weather's going to do what the weather's going to do. So it is what it is. Can I admit that it does annoy me that it seems like the same areas keep getting winter storms? It does a little bit. It does, because I'm a passionate winter weather fan. But we just got to wait our turn. We just got to keep waiting. And the signal is there on the European ensemble. There it is. Pretty solid signal right in here for something wintry. And then you look at the GFS, same kind of thing. And we'll have to back this up here. There's a signal right into here. Is there any kind of other signal after that? It does kind of want to show that coastal low little signal here. And there's another signal for the deep south that pops up again. So we just got to wait, folks. It's just part of the game. We got to wait. But, you know, nothing's set in stone with this winter storm coming up. We got a lot to figure out. That's all I got. God bless all y'all. Stay safe out there. And I'll have you updates throughout the day. God bless.